Have you ever thought about how your life would be impacted if you lost your ability to hear? Hearing is something that all of us use every day, all day. We use it to communicate, to stay attentive, to get up in the morning, almost everything. Most people would say that they could not live without their hearing, that they need it in order to function. After listening to my speech, you will know that the loss of hearing is not a form of handicapism. Millions of people are deaf or hard of hearing, and they do not feel as if it is a disadvantage. Instead, they are proud to be part of a deaf community. Being deaf and hard of hearing is not a bad thing. Everyone should be taught at least a little bit of signs, that way they are able to communicate with those that cannot hear. I too looked at deafness as one of the worst things that could happen to you. This all changed when I decided to take American Sign Language my junior year of high school. First in my sign language class, we learned about all the harshness and poor treatments that the deaf and hard of hearing went through. It was one of the worst things that could happen to a parent. The parents would often have their children sent away or even killed. This all started to change when the French Sign Language was created, and then Laurent Clark was a deaf man from France, and he traveled with Thomas Gallaudet to found the first deaf school in America. They did this using American Sign Language, or ASL, and this was the first time that the deaf had their own language in the United States. According to Harvard.edu, in 1872, Alexander Graham founded an oralist school. An oralist school requires students to use lip reading and speech only. If you ever played the game called Hearing Things, it's where you put on earphones and you have really loud music, and then you try to guess what other people are saying. You would understand just how hard this is. It's almost impossible. Then shortly after this, schools all around the world switched to this oral method, and they banned sign language. Children were not allowed to use their hands to communicate with one another. They were forced to wear gloves, and they had to put their hands behind their back. Then, as the National Association of Deaf was founded in 1890, this started to change again. Yet it wasn't until the 1960s that technology was being made to help the deaf community. First, it started with the teletypewriter, and then it went on from there. The Rehabilitation Act of 1973 also gave the deaf community some of the freedoms that they deserve. Although they have come a long way, they still are looked down upon and are not given the same opportunities that others are given. It is the fact that the deaf community has endured so much that it makes them such a tight-knit community. In any given city, almost every deaf and hard of hearing person will know each other. This is because they come together for activities and events. Also, when they see each other, they are very personable. Some would say that the deaf and hard of hearing don't have a filter. This is because they will ask almost anything and are just very straight up. In most homes where parents are deaf or hard of hearing, the children are taught signs and the whole family is able to communicate. It is pretty rare that the children are deaf unless adopted. As an article on genetic hearing loss states, gene mutations or genetics can result in hearing loss. At the same time, genetic factors can cause people to be more predisposed to hearing loss than others. This means that you could have your hearing loss due to age, drugs, noise, or infection, not necessarily just at birth. For children that are hard of hearing within a hearing home, they often never learn how to sign and are forced to use the oral method. This means that as adults, they do not have their own language and they cannot communicate to others using ASL. Another option that families choose to use to help their deaf children is to put in a cochlear implant. As the FDA.gov defines a cochlear implant, it is an implanted electronic hearing device designed to produce hearing sensations to a person with severe to profound nerve deafness by electronically stimulating nerves inside the inner ear. Okay, this definition sounds really confusing, so let me break it down for you. A cochlear implant is not the same as a hearing aid. A hearing aid amplifies noises and you're able to take it in and out. A cochlear implant is a very invasive surgery inside one's head. It does not make it so a person can hear noises around them. It stimulates nerves to give the individual a hearing sensation. Now I'm going to play a video of a popular band, and this is what it sounds like through a cochlear implant. Could you guess it? Okay, this is what it sounds like normally. Now, of course, it's going to be different in every situation. Every patient is going to react differently. Also, over time, technology is getting better and better. That being said, a cochlear implant is a very irreversible, life-changing decision that should not be taken lightly. In my opinion, there is a much more affordable and easy way to communicate with the deaf and hard of hearing. This is through ASL. This doesn't mean that you have to be fluent. Even knowing a few signs could go a long way. If everyone was taught at a young age some simple signs, it would be life-changing to the deaf community. Now, I've given you a lot of information about the deaf and their community, so let's cover the main points. It's crazy how much there is with the deaf community's background that is not shared in school. I shared some key points, but there's also so much more I'd encourage you to learn about. The deaf community has a tough background filled with injustice. This did help bring the community together and cause them to be so tight-knit. A cochlear implant is a very invasive surgery and would not be necessary if sign language was taught in grade school. It is never too late to learn to communicate in sign language. There are many apps, YouTube videos, and other sources that can help you learn the language. Even just learning the alphabet with a couple other signs could go a long way. Thank you for your time. Have a good day.